Antiquity Unveiled, the most marvelous revelations of the 19th century concerning the origin of Christianity, by Jonathan Manning Roberts. And we are into Zoroaster, Zarathustra, or Zerdusht. It would seem that the legendary character of Herodotus' account, Cyrus and Darius, did not mutilate against its historical correctness in the esteem of the Jew who plagiarized the Chaldean legend. Thus the plunder of Herodotus has been handed down to us through the Jewish Holy Writ, not only as historical truth, but as divine truth as well. In the light of all the facts which we're about to submit, it will be seen that Darius Hystaspes succeeded Belshazzar and not Cyrus, and that the latter succeeded Darius instead of preceding him. It is true that this fact makes an end of Daniel, but that cannot be helped, if he must die in order that the truth may live. And Cystesis is in generally untrustworthy, and Xenophon, I don't know the Greek, it was probably not the Z, seems to have written his book a kind of philosophical romance without much regard for history. The story of Herodotus, in spite of legendary character, has been generally adopted by modern historians down to Grote. It would seem that legendary character of Herodotus' account of Cyrus and Darius did not mutilate against his historical correctness in the esteem of the Jew who plagiarized the Chaldean legend, and thus the blunder of Herodotus has been handed down to us through the Jewish Holy Writ, not only as historical truth, but as divine truth as well. Most of the particulars of Cyrus's life are differently related in the histories of Cystesis and Herodotus, and in the Cyclopedia of Xenophon, Book of Daniel. Okay, Herodotus, it's not so much as a blunder as he took the different things that were being said and wrote them down. That's why we have 4 different versions sometimes in the Bible, because Herodotus was an influence, so contradictory accounts. The people who first wrote the Bible, this wasn't a problem for them. Well, it was a problem for them, but that's how they did it. I must give a brief account of Zarathustra, as gathered from the Persian author Zerdusht, son of Behram. 3 months before Zarathustra was born, his mother had a frightful dream, about which she consulted an astrologer, who assured her that she had no cause to fear any trouble for her child, and who predicted his future glory. He was born without pain to his mother, very much as the Christian painters depict the virgin birth. Immediately after having given birth to the newborn Jesus, the astrologers were jealous of him from the moment of his birth, and sought in various ways to kill him. But he was protected by Ahura Mazda. Now, Islam doesn't teach that Jesus was, that his birth was without pain. His mother certainly endured pain. And it doesn't necessarily say that his birth was a virgin birth either. It says that she's like, I'm chaste. How am I going to have a child? Oh, you're going to have a child. And then she went and conceived. It doesn't say that she didn't get married and conceive the normal way. But people assume, the Christians say it's a virgin birth, so we must think that too. It's like, there are narrations that say differently, but the Quran itself does not say differently. These efforts to destroy him continued until he has completed his 7th year. It was said of him, his supernatural wisdom, piety, and purity alone saved him from falling into the snares laid for him. His generosity and goodness were not less remarkable. He was prodigal. He was prodigal with his charity and consultation, helped those who sought his help, gave away his clothing and food, and thus acquired a great celebrity among the people. At the age of 30, just about the age when Jesus is said to have begun his mission, he was drawn to Iran, as the latter had been to Jerusalem. Iran here meaning the seat of the Persian learning and power. So, south from Azerbaijan and Afghanistan. He then quitted his home and country, and after wandering about for some time, he found himself in a country of delights, something after the description of paradise. From that lovely country he went up into the mountains, as Moses is said to have done, where one Bachman, whose hand was covered with Ahura Mazda, whose hand was covered with the veil, led him through the throngs of angels to the throne of Ahura Mazda. There, Zarathustra questioned Ahura Mazda regarding morals, the celestial hierarchy, religious ceremonies, the end of man, revolutions and influence of the stars, etc. He finally asked immortality of Ahura Mazda, but by a supernatural provision foreseeing all that was to take place, he withdrew his request. He then received from Ahura Mazda the Zendavesta, the sacred book of the Persians, with a command to proclaim its teachings to King Gustasp, who would protect the new religion and adopt it as his own. Maybe hundreds of years later, this is what happened. Because remember, the Zarathustra his account is mixed in with that of the revivals and the personification of such revivals. He then returned from Ahura Mazda with the Zend in one hand and the celestial fire in the other. The astrologers and magicians, apprised of his return, collected a great army to prevent his passage to the king of Iran. They were, however, the Magian, perhaps the Avesta was written by the Magian revival. They were, however, scattered in utter confusion by the power of Ahura Mazda. Reaching the king's palace and making known his mission, he was refused admission to the king by the attendants. In a moment, he descended through the ceiling of the hall in which the king sat surrounded by the learned and powerful of his kingdom. He was questioned by the king and the sages present concerning every department of knowledge, and answered them all with so much less ease and manifest erudition that the king was delighted to welcome him, and gave him magnificent apartments near the palace. For 2 days he discussed with the sages every question which they raised to embarrass him with entire success. Some days after he presented the Zendavesta to the king, announced to him his mission, and pleaded with him to embrace the true laws of that God who had made the 7 heavens, the stars and the earth, who had given him his life and his crown, and who had offered to all the faithful worshippers of his power an immortal glory after death. Neither the reading of the Zendavesta nor the eloquence of the prophet sufficed to convince the king. Gustasp demanded him to consider and miracles to attest to the truth of what Zarathustra told him. These were finally given to a wonderful extent, and the king became satisfied to accept the new religion, and did so using all his royal influence to induce his subjects to do the same. Not satisfied with this, Gustasp wrote to the governors of the neighboring countries to accept the religion of Zarathustra. Some obeyed, others refused. Rapid as was the spread of the new law, yet it was too slow to satisfy the ardor of Gustasp. He went to war with the king of Turan, incited thereto by Zarathustra. Then follows a long account of the war between Iran and Turan, which, for our purpose, need not be here given. Now, who's this Gustasp, king of Iran? That question once definitely settled, and we can then determine, almost to a certainty, the truth of the spirit communication that we are commenting on. On that point, Thomas's Dictionary, a biography, and mythology says. Now, so if a spirit speaks the truth, it doesn't mean that it's